Baby, I just got done watching that 4-hour deposition of former President Bill Clinton, William Jefferson Clinton. Hence why I am late getting this review to you guys. Because I watched the whole fucking thing. It's 4.5 hours. And I want to talk about it. So let's get into it. All right, you white motherfuckers, all eyes on me. This is the I Refuse podcast. I miss Fox, the I Refuse podcast. I am back. I've been on fire lately, getting this new content to y'all. I'm so excited to be back in the new space. Never mind my horse head. Never mind all this other stuff in the background. I just got done watching the 4-hour Bill Clinton deposition by the Subcommittee of Oversight. So, if you've been living under a rock, living in Amish country, living without running water, living without Wi-Fi, the last 2 or so days, the time has finally come. I knew probably about 6 months or so ago that they were going to pull the Clintons into depositions. Didn't know when, but out of everybody that y'all have seen in the photos or have seen on the registers and seen in the emails, Hillary and Bill Clinton were, to some degree, like the golden egg, right? Now, anybody that's anybody, I myself included, know that when it comes to depositions and it comes to controversy, the Clintons have been living with crosshairs on their back since I was in 5th grade. And I'll get into that at some point. And I'm going to do a separate review for the deposition that they did with Hillary the day before they did Bill Clinton's. But I started with Bill Clinton's deposition first because I saw the picture, the redacted photo of him in the, I think it was a pool or a hot tub, with his leaning back with his his signature pose, and it looked like it was the late 90s. Definitely looked like it was still presidential Bill Clinton. Of course, couldn't tell you which term, but I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to call him in, because given the history that I've read about, I've seen documentaries about, I saw American Crime Story impeachment. Nothing brings Republicans and haters together faster than the day that they can get Bill Clinton in the hot seat again. Everybody remembers the first time he was in the hot seat because of some stuff he was doing in the Oval Office, allegedly, in somebody else's hot seat. So this was a big deal. However, there are a couple of things there are a couple of things at play here that's working against the subcommittee, in my opinion. And before I go into anything, this is just my reaction. This is not this is not sponsored by any news channel or anything. This is me talking about what I saw and my reaction to it. I'm a man of a certain age. I know I don't look it. You know, drink your water, mind your African American business. But it's almost like deja vu with Bill Clinton again, just being questioned. Um, the thing about it though is this man will be 80 in August. I looked it up while he was talking. This man will be 80 in August. He has had quadruple bypass. He has a stent in place. And I believe at some point he has had a defibrillator on him at some point. Needless to say, the man is this is a person that you do not want to get like excited around. And this is me talking. So here you have 4.5 hours. You are sitting across from numerous people that come in. They do the majority questioning, the minority questioning. There is probably like 2 or 3 more sections of questioning. And there's probably roughly, I heard, up to about 6 or 7 people out of frame asking him questions, including Nancy Mace. And I'll get to her later on. So you're asking an almost 80-year-old man as to the degree or the nuances of his relationship with a man that they say committed suicide almost 10 years ago. That's a tall order. Not only that, you are going off of, well, the files, emails, pictures. You want to know as to the degree of his association. And every once in a while, throughout the 4.5 hours, dance as close as possible to collusion, to some kind of awareness, because it on the surface it does look like you were, if you weren't in it, you were damn near close to it. So a lot of questions throughout all of that, right? It started off pleasant enough, and mind you, he's sitting there with his legal team. There's a woman on his left, and there's an older gentleman on his right. And throughout the 4.5 hours, there are numerous times that the questioning is not specific enough. It kind of feels like they're trying to trip him up. Especially when it came to Nancy Mace, who, again, I'll get to her in a minute. Definitely there was a change in the air from person to person, and you can tell that for the most part, the committee, the members asking the questions, had still some reverence for Bill Clinton, in spite of that situation that happened during his presidency. And it is wild to me that we are about 25, 30 years removed from that point in time. And even at his age, Bill Clinton is still charming, but Bill Clinton is also a man of a particular age. Tended to go into a bit of a tangent, tend to get a little carried away, and I'm sitting on the edge of my seat like, Bill, we know you got the gift of gab, but you may want to like rein it in a little bit. You want to rein it in a little bit. You know, unfortunately, it's unfortunate for Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton that even at this particular stage in life, they haven't been in the White House in an official role in about 10 or so years. The White House we have now is definitely not the White House of yesteryear. So, still close to 80, being put into these kind of situations. And when you think about it, when you are the age that you are, and you come across so many people, and you come across this one person that doesn't have a professional line of work that's like this one thing. Like, Epstein wasn't a politician, he wasn't running for Congress. He was a man more or less good with numbers. And definitely use his talent to work his way in certain rooms and talk. Definitely a schmoozer and networked his ass off. Unfortunately, with that kind of access and that kind of power, he was able to bankroll a lifestyle of anonymity and privacy that a lot of these folks were not aware of. It is the 21st century. This is not the first time that we've heard of a person that essentially lived a double life. Unfortunately, this was not a 9 to 5 everyday kind of person. This person was in a room with a lot of people. And unfortunately, when you are a former president, you've been in a couple of rush hour movies, you've been like celebrities and stuff like that, people on the outside are going to perceive that you knew or saw something and didn't report it. Like any hair out of place, people will think, and they still will think, regardless of this deposition, that more or less Bill Clinton's probably covering something. And, they haven't trusted Hillary since she elected to stay by Bill Clinton's side. I'm just theorizing. But, to Bill Clinton's credit, that's about what? 2 times as president. You're not, the association more or less is not going to extend beyond that time because you're not as relevant or as powerful as a former president. But yet and again, 4.5 hours of a deposition. The majority questions, they range from things that revolved around flights. They went down the list of names. Did he know this person? Did he know that person? Did he know this person? And there was a lot of names, and they probably pulled that from the register of the private plane, is my guess. The questions, for the most part, were to my review, my reaction, definitely to me sound like they were trying to like trap Bill Clinton. And if I recall, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton went to law school. I believe one of them actually practiced law. Very, very slick. From my history of watching old clips of Bill Clinton when he was president and stuff, he definitely has a way of coloring his answers. Coloring to kind of like detract attention from the question itself and kind of lose people. And of the 4.5 hours, there were definitely times I saw that I was looking at 1998 Bill Clinton, or dare I say 1994 Bill Clinton, you know, pre playing saxophone Bill Clinton on the late night show. You truly had to be there. Um, but definitely on the subcommittee, it was giving, of course, they're grasping for straws. They're trying to get something. They're trying to get Bill Clinton on something. That's their job. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. When I look at hers, I'm sure, and I'll review hers. And from what I saw, though, the couple of clips, she didn't go the whole session without being a little feisty. If there's one thing I know about Hillary, she has no problem vocalizing and acknowledging the incompetency or the lack of intelligence and the disarray or the condition of the place where she is at the time. At some point, let's see, they turned the line of questioning on around the victims, particularly Virginia Jeffrey. The book, they threw Prince Andrew in there. There were some questions around him, as if Bill Clinton was everywhere. They saw these people in these photos. What was the nature of the conversation? What was your association with Andrew and Virginia? The massaging. Do you think it's customary for flight personnel and flight attendants to be on planes in skimpy outfits? What about the pull-out bed or the bed area in the back? Things of that nature. Some of the questions were inspired by statements the victims made, to which Bill Clinton really didn't have an answer for that because, I mean, Bill Clinton wasn't there. Let's see. There was some questions around Felon 47. Do you think this, or do you think a person that participated or was part of the human trafficking and all that should be, it was almost hypothetical. There were definitely some ethics and morale based questions. Bill, more or less, Bill Clinton, his recollection of his experience with Jeffrey Epstein on the planes was from about the AIDS crisis, and that was his position in the conversation. His experience with Jeffrey Epstein, in response to that, here's a guy that just wanted to know so much. He just wanted to know a lot of stuff. But it was more like he wasn't of it, he was just in it. And I think a lot of us could relate to that. So it didn't really give, for it to be as long as it was 4.5 fucking hours, it really didn't give a whole lot. Again, you are asking a man that is almost 80 about a time in his life when he was president almost 30 some years ago. About a man that's no longer here, and a woman that is, they say, still trying to get some clemency or getting her leniency or something with Felon 47. And it's like, once a person's president, what, what, what the fuck would he know after the fact, you know? So when it came, I didn't catch it at first, but the more I listened closer, I was like, oh, this lady is a piece of work. And it was Nancy Mace. Never heard of this lady before. Some of the Hillary Clinton clips. But you know how there is a difference in the quality of questions by the person that's asking them. You know, she does not have a law degree. She's out of one of the jurisdictions of South Carolina. And as such, she was just so egregious. Tone was a little heavy. Mouth was very, very stressful. You have, for the most part, Clinton's legal team, the female member of his legal team is stressing the importance of clarity out of this lazy general kind of questions. There were moments in the deposition where Nancy Mace and some other people before her tried to, framing the question based off of a quote, framing it as though Bill Clinton was lying, that he only met with Jeffrey Epstein twice before. There was a lot of tension in that amongst the two members of his legal team and Nancy Mace. But she was very, very full of herself. Very, very full of herself. It brings to mind like, oh God, we have another Ann Coulter on our hands. And she can be a piece of work too. And the reason why I brought her name up is because back in the early 90s, when there was a fire brewing around President Clinton at the time and the intern, Ann Coulter was definitely on a mission. Honestly, did not see it for him at that time. And look at her now. So it just, watching that exchange between the three of them over a quote in either a Vanity Fair article or it was like a New York Times. A quote from almost 10 years ago. She refused to recite the entire article in its entirety because you got to remember, in a deposition, every answer and every question has to be verbal. She refused to verbalize the article. Just framing the question around a quote in the article. And all throughout this 4.5 hours, a lot of these questions were around speculation and hearsay. So just imagine, after roughly 3 or so hours of that, you get to a point, the last hour and a half, and this is what you got. This is the best you can do. After a year plus, on the big day, you want to frame questions based off of a quote. A news source is quoting Bill Clinton, which in and of itself is just a small piece. Without context, it's nonsense. So I was sitting there as they were going back and forth, like, where is she? What goal is she trying to get to with this? You know, at that point, they were focused already on Bill Clinton being on the plane. You know, how many flights, to where, what, how long were the flights, what was the conversations about on these flights, things of that nature. They're trying to arrive with, on Bill Clinton that he was more involved than they want us to believe, or they want me to believe. And it's like Bill Clinton has never struck anybody as a predator. Now, could he be a womanizer? Maybe. A philanderer? Possibly. Is he a little shaky, a little spotty? Maybe. But underage girls, and even that part, you know, it's the trickery for me. It's the trickery for me. You are asking a man that is almost 80 about young girls. Anybody younger than Bill Clinton is young. When the context is that you have a financier or a guy that's great with numbers that is reported to have trafficked, essayed minors on numerous properties of his. And you're trying to build a bridge between him and William Jefferson Clinton based off of photos, emails, pictures, a flight log. That's wild. That's a tall order. Bill Clinton likes women. Bill Clinton likes women. I mean, I knew, in the back of my mind, I knew that they were going to ask or get in the neighborhood of that kind of perception, because the topic or the elephant in the room is a man that's known to have done those things under the guise of massages and masseusing and all that other stuff. But I walked away from this feeling like y'all really tried. I mean, it's probably 90% of that session ineffectual at best, and that's putting it as politely as possible. And this isn't based on any favoritism or bias in Bill Clinton's direction or Hillary Rodham Clinton's direction. But it's like, there's nothing dirty here. And I know y'all hate to admit it, but there's definitely an angle from one side of the aisle against this side of the aisle. There is, in my 40 some odd years of life on this planet, there is a lack of trust on both sides. Each side is skeptical of the other. Um, but I honestly could not tell you. Let's say, let's just entertain the alternative, right? Let's say there was something. And there was part of me in the 4.5 hours that thought, man, if he keeps talking, if he even says something remotely close to what they think is a gotcha, like give him a little bit of rope, they're going to work that. But let's just say, hypothetically, there's an alternative and they got something on him or they got something on Hillary. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because they did all this, like they did the rollout of all of this, like it was some kind of a moon landing redo or something, and you're like, out of all the shit y'all should be focusing on, we going back in history and asking motherfuckers from the early 90s. And, you know, when it comes to Bill Clinton, y'all are beating a dead horse. When it comes to Hillary Rodham Clinton, another dead horse you're beating. And I know y'all still kind of tied up on them damn emails, but it's like, y'all take accountability for what y'all let get back in for the second time. And look at where we are now. I am still of the firm belief, and this will probably be all of 2026, this whole thing is a distraction. Y'all have yet to pull in the person y'all should be pulling in. And I'm not going to say his name. Not going to say his name. Not going to say it. Y'all just don't like the Clintons. That's what it is. Or they don't. That last hour or so, I was like, y'all are going to work this man's blood pressure up. And you know, to that extent, he probably can't afford any more hysterical moments in his life. At some point, there was blood starting to show in his eyeball, in the left eyeball, like right down here. It wasn't there the rest of the time, but it actually started showing up right around the time Nancy Mace and her stressful ass was being a real biatch. But I'll say this, you really didn't, there was no smoking gun, there was no aha moment. There were times that they had to like kind of nudge him or kind of like reel him in, because he's got the gift of gab. But at 80 something, almost 80 years of age, you might want to rein that down. No, for the most part, if it was probably wise that he went in there with his legal team. You know, they kind of had to not only work as his lawyers, but also work as kind of like caregivers, stressing that the line of questioning be clear, you know, trying to get him to understand what they're actually asking. Because there were times that Bill actually was like kind of frozen a little bit, not on like a Joe Biden level, but you know, he is a man of a particular age. So that was very, very wise. And kudos to the female litigator that was with him. She wasn't playing any games with nobody. And she wasn't she wasn't shy about letting Nancy Mace have it. They kept it cute. Nancy Mace, on the other hand, girl, very, very, very stressful. Very, very stressful. But I understand that some folks compensate incompetency with hostility. That's a quote from me. So, I will say this was an 8 out of 10. You know, Bill Clinton is the charming one. I can't wait to get into Hillary Clinton's deposition because she's sharp. No nonsense, straight shooter. I want to hear her give Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace a run for their overpaid asses. In the meantime, between time, Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast, it's been real. Be on the lookout for my reaction to Hillary Clinton's deposition after this, even though hers took place the day before Bill Clinton's. Continue to follow, subscribe, and support original Black content creators like myself. I Refuse Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Usual Suspects Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. I Refuse Podcast YouTube channel. Follow, subscribe. Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Tumblr. Link is in the bio. Link is on the YouTube page. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.
Fendi, like the bag. This is the I